It was one of those gray, southern afternoons in Atlanta, where the rain fell soft and steady like a lullaby, but the air still hung thick with heat. Outside of Southern Cross National Bank, the street bustled with weekday traffic. People hurried past, umbrellas jostling, heads down, eyes on their errands. And then he appeared, an old black man, stooped at the shoulders, with skin weathered like bark and eyes as tired as they were wise. He wore a threadbare brown overcoat, several sizes too big, and dragged a faded burlap sack behind him. No umbrella, just a sack, worn at the seams, bulging with God knows what. He walked like he had all the time in the world, indifferent to the rain, like a man who'd long stopped worrying about getting wet. The revolving doors of the bank spun as he stepped in. He paused, wiping water from his face with shaky hand. People stared. The air inside was cool and dry, sterile, and his presence felt like a crack in the glass. He shuffled slowly toward the teller line, and that's when the murmurs began. 3 tellers at the front desk exchanged glances. One, a young white man named Chad, elbowed his colleague, a woman with sharp nails and sharper eyes named Lindsay. "Looks like someone took a wrong turn on the way to Goodwill," Chad whispered with a chuckle. "God, is he carrying trash in that bag?" Lindsay sneered. Even the security guard stiffened, stepping forward just slightly, hand near his belt, not on his weapon, but close enough to send a message. The old man didn't flinch. He waited patiently in line, every now and then adjusting the sack that rested against his leg, like a tired dog. People behind him started switching lines. Some pretended to check their phones. One woman actually wrinkled her nose. Chad leaned over the counter. "Sir, can I help you with something? This bank doesn't cash checks over a certain amount without ID and a proper account." The old man looked up, his eyes slow but piercing. He said nothing. Instead, he opened the sack. The sound of the sack opening was dry and gritty, like paper sliding against stone. Inside, stacks, bundles of money, wrapped in bank-issued bands. 10s, 20s, 50s, hundreds, all clean, all accounted for, neatly organized. The room fell into silence. The guard took a step back. Lindsay blinked like someone had splashed cold water on her face. Chad straightened, his voice suddenly less amused. "Sir, that's quite a bit of cash. May I ask where you—" The old man finally spoke. "You may not," he said, voice low and gruff, "but you can call your branch manager. Tell her Jeremiah Elijah Freeman would like a word." The name lingered in the air. The silence became something else now, dense with recognition. Within minutes, the branch manager, Ms. Dana Hollis, a black woman in her late 40s, all poise and pearls, burst out her glass-walled office. Her heels clicked like a metronome of urgency. When she saw him, she gasped. "Mr. Freeman?" she said, almost breathless. I wasn't expecting you until Friday." "I came early," he said simply. "Didn't want to miss the show." He glanced around. The stairs, the fear, the quiet scramble of staff pretending not to be caught. Hollis turned toward the tellers, her face shifting from pleasant to ice-cold. "This is Mr. Freeman," she said, voice trembling slightly with reverence. "He is the primary stakeholder of Southern Cross National. As in, he owns this bank." A beat passed, then another. Chad looked like his tongue had disappeared. Lindsay clutched her keyboard like a lifeline. The guard took off his hat. The old man, Jeremiah Elijah Freeman, smiled just a little, not with pride, but with the quiet weariness of a man who had walked through storms longer than anyone in that room could imagine. They didn't know the story. Didn't know that Jeremiah had once been a janitor in this very city, mopping floors in office towers he couldn't afford to enter by the front door. Didn't know he'd spent years saving every dollar, investing in real estate, when no one else believed in the neighborhoods that raised him. Didn't know he'd been turned away from this very bank in 1983 when he tried to open his first business account, told he didn't meet the requirements. Didn't know that he bought his first share of Southern Cross in 1992, and over the next 30 years, slowly, methodically, quietly bought more. Enough to become the majority owner. Enough to have every executive know his name. Enough to own the floor they stood on. But they saw a black man with a sack. and they assumed he was nothing. That afternoon, Jeremiah didn't fire anyone. He didn't yell. He didn't grandstand. He simply took his money, gave a nod to Miss Hollis, and turned back toward the door. But just before he stepped out, he paused. "You know," he said, voice calm, "people always talk about not judging books by their covers, but they never say how many people will miss the story entirely because they don't bother to open the book in the first place." And with that, he walked back into the rain, sack in hand, shoulders tall now. The door spun shut behind him. We live in a world where perception often stands in the way of truth, where skin color and status symbols speak louder than dignity. But sometimes a quiet lesson walks in off the street, carrying a sack full of history and a name forged in resilience. And when that happens, the whole room remembers what humility looks like. Never judge too quickly, because you never know who you're standing in line with. If you believe in the power of stories to change minds and open hearts, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to new cinematic stories drop daily, and every single one might just change the way you see the world.